Hello and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be taking a look at the NewBeeDrone Mosquito, which is one of NewBeeDrone's latest bind and fly drones. There's some interesting history behind the Mosquito. It was originally released as a frame upgrade for NewBeeDrone's Whoops. So you'd buy this frame and you'd swap on all of the parts from a Whoop onto it and you'd end up with a different sort of drone. There was a lot of demand for this and people wanted to be able to buy it as its own product and just buy it already assembled and ready to go. And so that's what NewBeeDrone did. They created this bind and fly version of the Mosquito. In this review, we're going to take a look at the specs of the Mosquito. I'm going to show you some flights and give you some impressions. And my goal is to help you decide if this is going to be your next drone, or maybe even your first drone. Let's go ahead and take a look. The Mosquito has an open prop design that measures 78 millimeters from motor post to motor post and has a carbon fiber frame that measures 2.5 millimeters thick. It has 40 millimeter tri-blade props that are driven by 0802 20,000 kV motors. The Mosquito is powered by the B-Brain BLV3 flight controller, which is an all-in-one board that has 12 amp ESCs, an FrSky diversity receiver that supports D8 and D16, and 120 milliwatt VTX that can be switched between 5, 50, and 120 milliwatts. It has NewBeeDrone's BI camera, and it uses 1S batteries with a pH 2.0 connector. The recommended batteries for this drone are the NewBeeDrone Nitro Nectar Gold batteries that are 330 milliamp hours. I do recommend using those batteries because they fit perfectly in the battery holder on the bottom of this drone, and that's exclusively what I use for my review. So if you buy this drone, I definitely recommend picking up some of those batteries as well as a charger if you don't already have one. The Mosquito weighs in at 26.9 grams without a battery. Let me give you my impressions from taking a look at the Mosquito. First off, I really like the design. I think it looks cool, and I like that they use this thick carbon fiber frame. I was surprised at how thick that was, but I think it's really going to help the durability of this drone. I'm not too worried about crashing it. I don't think that the frame is going to break in any normal crashes. I also find this open prop design to be pretty interesting. This is definitely a departure from what I normally picture from NewBeeDrone. So when I think of NewBeeDrone, I think of Whoops with the ducted props that you can fly inside and all that. And this is different from that. So you're probably not going to want to fly this indoors, but it's going to give it some interesting flight characteristics outside. And I know I'm really curious to see how it flies outside. So we're going to be taking a look at that here in a moment. But before we get to the flights, the last thing I wanted to talk about related to this design is how user-friendly this drone is. I think this is something that's really a strength of NewBeeDrone. I think they focus on that new user experience, and I saw a lot of examples of that. When I first pulled the Mosquito out of the package, I noticed that the motors each had a sticker on them letting me know whether that motor needed a clockwise or a counterclockwise prop. The prop bags also were labeled and colored with the same colors as those motor stickers, and so it was really easy to line up which prop to put on which motor. It seems like a simple thing, but it's definitely something that trips new users up, and even for me, it's just nice to not have to think about it, just match up the colors. It was really easy. I think the built-in FrSky receiver is another good example of this. A lot of times when we buy drones, even if they're bind and fly drones, they may have an external receiver, and so you've got to figure out what the bind process is for that receiver and what button you need to press down or whatever to get it into bind mode. It's much easier with these built-in receivers, so you just open up Betaflight, and on the receiver tab there's a bind receiver button, and so you can click that button to put it into bind mode. FrSky was a good choice because, especially for newer pilots, if you have any radio transmitter, it's very likely that it already supports FrSky, and so you can just use that directly with this drone. You probably wouldn't need to buy a module for your radio or anything like that, and if you are brand new, there are several radio options out there that are affordable and will work with this drone. So I think that was a good choice. And finally, I think the choice to use 1S batteries with the pH 2.0 connector was another user-friendly decision for this drone. 1S batteries are pretty cheap, they're easy to find, and they don't have as many charging considerations as the larger multi-cell batteries. So you can buy several of these batteries for only a couple of dollars each, and then you can get a really affordable charger that's even powered over USB. So you have a lot of options there, and it's going to be really easy to charge these batteries and take care of them. I think that was a good choice, especially for newer pilots. In terms of things I wish they had done differently with the design, I do find myself wishing the Mosquito had an adjustable camera angle. That's a really easy way to adjust how fast or slow the drone feels, so if you use the higher camera angle, it makes the drone feel faster, and if you use a lower camera angle, it makes it feel a little bit slower. For me, if I'm just flying in my backyard in a small area, a lot of times I like to use a really low camera angle. I find that I have more control and I'm not moving quite as quickly, and sometimes it's just more relaxing and more fun for me. It would have been pretty cool to have that option. Of course, you do always have the option of swapping out the canopy for a different one, so if you wanted a higher or lower camera angle, you could just change the canopy to get that, but I just wish they had made it adjustable from the factory. But as much as I like talking about the design of these drones, what really matters is how it flies. So let's take the Mosquito outside and put it through its paces. The best way I can think of to describe the flight characteristics of the Mosquito is to say that it feels like it's as light as a feather. You can really tell that this is a lightweight 1S drone. It doesn't take much to make it accelerate, and it's very fast even on low throttle. You'll notice this as soon as you take off. It's like you barely touch the throttle and it just kind of floats up into the air. It's very different than flying a heavier drone. I think my favorite way to fly the Mosquito is to visualize it as a small, lightweight drone and to speed around in some of these smaller outdoor areas. I fly in my backyard a lot. I'll go out during lunch or after work and just fly a few packs, and I found the Mosquito to be pretty ideal for that type of environment. It's fast and agile enough to make turns around these trees and do this racing style of flying, but the flight dynamics of it are pretty fun. You can kind of drift it around turns if you want to, and you can do some sliding or inertia type moves, so you can really have quite a bit of fun with it, even in a small environment such as this. I've been getting about 3 minutes of flight time with this type of flying. That's right in line with other drones of this size, and I found it to be long enough to have fun flying this drone. One of the things that stood out to me most about the Mosquito is how quiet it is. This is really probably the quietest drone I've ever flown, and if you're more than a few feet away from it, you probably won't even be able to hear it. This is an advantage, that open prop design. We definitely don't see that on whoops with ducts. Those are much louder than this. And it's something that gives the Mosquito quite a bit of an advantage for flying in an area like a public park. So if you're somewhere where there's people around, this is gonna be really unobtrusive. It's not gonna bother anybody. I mean, they may not even know that you're there flying, and that's really a great feature. I know for me, sometimes I go to a park to fly and there's other people there, and I feel really self-conscious about turning on this drone that sounds like a vacuum cleaner and flying it around, and I kind of feel like I'm disrupting them or ruining their day. And so for those types of situations, a drone that's this quiet is such a nice advantage. I feel like I can fly this drone anywhere and it's not gonna bother anybody, they're not gonna feel threatened by it, and they probably won't even notice it. So that's really a big advantage depending on where you fly and how you fly. I do want to talk about freestyle flying. Now that's not something that I do as much, but I did do some of it with the Mosquito to see what that was like. It's certainly capable of doing flips and rolls. You won't have any trouble getting it to actually execute those moves. But one thing you do need to be aware of is that you have to treat this differently than you would treat a larger and heavier drone. I know for me, if I'm doing freestyle with a larger drone, I'm typically doing a throttle punch before the move to kind of get some extra altitude. And then if I do something like a dive, I'm gonna have to hold the throttle at full power for a moment at the end to overcome that momentum and kind of get back up to altitude. With the Mosquito, you've got to remember that it's a small, lightweight drone with a small battery. If you do a lot of full punch outs, you're gonna notice that that battery voltage drops quickly and you're not gonna get very much flight time. But you're also going to find that you don't actually need to use the throttle as much as you would on a larger drone. It doesn't take a whole lot to overcome the inertia of this drone, so a small throttle movement can make it change directions very quickly, and you don't have to hold the throttle very long to gain quite a bit of speed going upward. So what you're going to see is that you can still do freestyle tricks with this drone, you just have to learn how to manage your throttle a little bit differently. Let's talk too about range, both for the control signal and the video signal. I don't really have any major concerns here. You know, FrSky isn't really a long range protocol, so you're not going to get really extended range with this drone. It's not something that you'd use for long range exploring, but it does work pretty well in those closer environments. I think in the types of environments you'd normally fly this drone, like a park or something like that, I think it's going to be pretty good. The diversity antennas on the flight controller aren't going to have too large of an effect on the total maximum range of FrSky, but they will help ensure that when you are within that range, you get a stronger signal and you're less likely to have a failsafe within the normal range of the protocol. When I was flying, I did get a couple of low RSSI warnings when I started to fly farther away from myself, but within a backyard, within a smaller area, I didn't have any trouble at all. And I never actually got a failsafe with the drone, so I never actually got to a limit where it actually dropped that signal. In terms of the video signal, the 120 milliwatt VTX seems more than sufficient to match that range of the FrSky control protocol. I think if you were flying this, you'd probably run out of the control range before you'd run out of video range, so I didn't have any problems there. I do wish they had a 25 milliwatt setting for the VTX. I know sometimes racers are in situations where they need to be at 25 milliwatts, and so I wish this flight controller supported that. It's a shame it doesn't. But overall, I didn't have any trouble with this VTX. It does support smart audio, so you can use your radio transmitter to change the channel and power, which is nice to see. And in general, the control and video signal felt pretty reasonable to me for this size of drone. I did fly the Mosquito a little bit at night. I don't think that's something I would recommend. It seemed like the camera really didn't handle complete darkness that well. I do think you could fly in low light, like as the sun is going down or that sort of thing. I think that would be fine. But as you can see here, I mean, it is pretty dark in my backyard, but it's pretty hard to see with this camera. So the only reason I'm even doing this is because I'm very familiar with my backyard and I know exactly where all the obstacles are, but I wouldn't really call this camera a night performer. And finally, I did get a few unfortunate chances to test the durability of this drone as I was doing this testing. Now, you know, every crash is different. I'm not saying the Mosquito's indestructible, but I do feel like it's designed pretty well for durability. That thick carbon fiber frame makes it pretty unlikely to break an arm, and there's really not too much that I could imagine happening besides maybe breaking a prop. Fortunately, they do include some extra props with the kit, so if you do break a prop, you've already got a couple of spares to replace it. So now that you've seen some flights, let's talk about who might enjoy the Mosquito. You know, I think this drone would be a really good choice if you want something that's small and compact that you can take with you and, you know, opportunistically fly when you're out places. Like I said, the Mosquito is one of the quietest drones I've ever flown, and you know, you could fly this in a public park or in an area with people and they probably wouldn't even notice that you're flying a drone. I think that that could be really fun in certain situations. I do think that this drone is better for smaller environments, so something like a backyard or a smaller park or playground or something like that, so you're not going to want to use this for long-range flights, but I think that leaves you with a lot of possibilities for flying this drone and having fun with it. And I think the Mosquito could be a really good choice for newer pilots. So if you're looking at this as your first drone, or if you already have one drone and you're looking to add a second, I think that this could be a good option for you. Chances are your radio already supports the FrSky protocol, and so you wouldn't have any troubles binding to this drone. It uses those 1S batteries that are really simple to charge and use, and it's easy to get set up and start flying right out of the box. You know, I think NewBeeDrone has a strong reputation for quality. I do think you're going to get really good build quality on this drone, and as a newer pilot, I think that's something that would be really important. You know, when you're just trying to get flying for the first time, you don't want to be troubleshooting problems with the drone or have something that's broken out of the box. And so I think going with the NewBeeDrone product could be a good option to ensure that you're going to have a better experience out of the box. So overall, I think the Mosquito is a pretty unique little drone. Like I said, if you're coming from a larger or heavier drone, you know, you might actually have a little bit of a learning curve figuring out how to fly this, because it does fly a little bit differently than those drones. But I think it could be pretty ideal in certain situations. I had a lot of fun flying it around in my backyard, and I could picture it being really good in a park or somewhere where you don't really want to bother the people around you. I think you're going to have to look at what your certain flying situations are and, you know, where you like to fly and how you like to fly. But I think depending on what you're looking for, this could be a really good option. But guys, that's going to do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed this review of the NewBeeDrone Mosquito. I definitely enjoyed reviewing it, and I think it's a fun little drone. And if you are interested in the Mosquito, I am going to have links down in the description below. So if you want to buy one, definitely check that out. As always, if you enjoyed this review, I'd encourage you to like the video and subscribe to this channel. I like making reviews like this, and I've got a lot more planned, so I hope you guys will stick around for that. But thanks for watching this one, and I'll see you guys in the next video.